Hi, it's Tony. If you do peer-to-peer fundraising, walks and rides, check out rallybound.com. They're good people. Really. Welcome to Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio coverage of Fundraising Day 2013. We're at the Marriott Marquis Hotel in Midtown, New York City, right in Times Square. With me now is Dan Blakemore. We're going to talk about donor retention. He is Assistant Director of Development, Individual Giving for International House. Dan Blakemore, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Tony. I'm really happy to be here.
My pleasure. What is International House's work?
International House, we are a residential community for international graduate students here in New York City. The residents can be studying pretty much anything at the graduate level as long as they're doing it in New York City and they're eligible to live at the house. We also house interns, trainees, and visiting scholars from around the city.
It sounds like a pretty dynamic place to visit. Are you there? You sharing meals with them very often?
Oh yeah, there's a dining room. I usually have lunch every day with other staff members and resident members. Gym facilities, study rooms, computer labs. I mean, we try to have as much in the house as possible for them. So yes, they have to leave every now and again to go to class or something crazy like that.
Right.
But we really want them to stay in the community as much as possible, learn as much from each other as possible, because our mission is really driven by leadership development and cross-cultural understanding for the residents.
It sounds like an incredible place to visit.
It is.
All over the world, studying all different kinds of things.
Oh yeah,
here in New York. All right. Your seminar topic is acquisition and retention of donors, but it's a panel, and your expertise is the retention part.
Definitely.
So I'm not going to hold you to the acquisition part. Let's talk about donor retention. Well, social media is a big part of that. I don't know, is telemarketing a part of that? Where do you want to start with retention?
For International House, at least, in my experience, the retention has been much more focused around kind of I call it really the basics of good fundraising, good stewardship. Everybody gets a phone call or an email long before they get their acknowledgement from the president or the director of development. We're really trying to focus a lot around showing impact to people so that they are really clear on where their money is going. Because when I started at iHouse, we were in the middle of a multi-year, multi-million-dollar challenge grant. And I said, okay, well, what are we doing to show impact to the people that have given already? Because it's going to be much easier to get them to give us an extra $100, an extra $1,000 if they know we're doing the right thing with their money and there's really something good happening here, than to have to be going out to other people saying, okay, you don't know me, but International House is a great place, give me some money.
Yeah, that's widely recognized that it costs a lot more time and money to acquire a new donor than to keep one.
So I said, what are we really doing? And we weren't doing as much. So one of the things I've been happy to do in my 3.5 years there is really focus us on a sustainable stewardship program, so that we're really engaging people, whether they are named room donors from 20 years ago to someone who set up a scholarship fund last year, that they're hearing from us, that they know that the money they've given in the past is really having an impact, and of course encouraging them to continue giving, because we got to keep the doors open. We got to keep the residents exposed to all the programs we're providing to encourage their leadership.
You mentioned a telephone call. Who would make that telephone call to donors to thank them?
In the lion's share of cases, it's me, since I'm Assistant Director of Development for Individual Giving. But there are some.
I said your title once, Dan.
Yes.
You don't need to name dropping yourself. It's getting ridiculous already. We're not even 5 minutes into this thing. Already we've heard his title twice.
Thank you,
this
Tony.
Is going to keep up. This keeps up. I'm shutting your mic off. Okay.
But there are some that I usually will say for the Director of Development or our President, especially kind of long, generous loyalty donors, alumni that are much older and have been giving to us for decades, that I think should at some point hear from the president. It's not usually much more of a nice treat for them to kind of share their experience of what they remember from when they lived at the house, but also then know that the president is saying, really, we appreciate your support, we value it, please keep giving, and thank you. I think that's important.
I think the backdrop is closing in on us a little bit. So no, I don't know if you have to move, but the backdrop is being encroached from the other side.
Oh, okay.
We'll see what they're trying to get more space. They want an 11 by 10 booth. They were allocated a 10 by 10. They want an 11 by 10. All right. That doesn't matter. We continue. I mean, we've had earthquakes. We've had raffles going on. The lights have gone off today multiple times.
I'm not surprised.
Not our floodlights.
Good. Okay.
Do board members? What about you? Ever engage board members for these thank you calls?
Occasionally. I mean, I'm working one of my many goals probably in the next year or two. Also because our long-serving president is retiring in the next few months. So I really want to try to get, especially starting with the members of our development committee, more involved with fundraising. Just because some have been very concerned or worried about, I don't have nearly as many friends who are rich that can come to the gala or can make a gift at $5,000 level every year. So I just can't be helpful with fundraising. And it's
not true.
It's much more. So I'm working with them to kind of open their eyes to, really, if you just make thank you calls and share your experience, share with the donors why you're on the board, ask them why they're giving. That's easy. You don't need to write a check. You don't need to harass anybody else. And that does not mean I don't want you to get your wealthy friends to come to our special events or to come to speaker programs and meet residents. But it's really about kind of opening up that fundraising experience, letting them see that there's a whole lot more to the process than just begging your friends to give you some money.
Okay. All right. Very much a personal touch is what you're trying to bring.
Hopefully.
Okay. Let's go online to some social media. What do you like to do on Facebook to
Facebook,
keep donors?
All social media for us is challenging, I would say, because by virtue of the kind of nonprofit that we are, our key audiences are always residents that currently live in the house, alumni, donors, trustees, other people that know of our work. So we're always kind of throwing different messages for different populations all on the same channels because they're all there. It would probably be nicer if we could say all the alumni are only on Facebook or all the trustees are only on Twitter.
That's not realistic, though.
Unfortunately, that is not realistic.
You got to go to them where they are.
Exactly. So I think it's been a lot of integration, to say the least. Whether it's the Facebook groups, like right now, I know we have an alumni reunion coming up next weekend, and kind of a lot of the momentum for it really started on Facebook. The alums who are the co-chairs of the reunion committee really they started their own subgroup within our group.
Yeah.
That was, okay, everybody who's coming, make sure you get your registrations in, make sure you consider making a gift along with your registration. These are all the events we have going on. We hope to see you there. Bring your kids. If there's someone that you lost touch with, we'll see if we can reconnect you with them. Is there someone you know who doesn't hear from the house anymore? Make sure you have them send us their new information.
So you're happy to have them piggyback on?
Oh yeah, please.
On International House's Facebook page.
Oh, that makes
not like it's a violation of policy or something.
No, I mean it's much better for us to have them out there doing it, getting the message to their friends who, while I'm sure the bulk of them have liked our page, generally know what we're talking about, but they're always going to be much more responsive to someone that they know personally than me or the director of development or the alumni relations director putting something up saying, hope we see you at the reunion. They're going to say, oh yeah, the reunion's happening, okay. But
I think the point is that degree of flexibility,
yes,
that when someone wants to take the ball, including using your, piggybacking on your organization fundraising page, you allowed it.
Oh, of course. I mean, we want them to feel comfortable putting those messages out, because those people who are pushing the message out are going to be much more effective in their outreach than we could ever be.
They're talking to their friends.
Exactly.
As close as you get, you won't ever have the relationship that they have
exactly
with their friends. How about other online strategies? Where else you want to look?
We're dipping toes. I mean, we're on Twitter, and a lot of the messaging there has been focused around current events happening at the house kind of as they're happening. So there has been some live tweeting. I know we did some live tweeting of our gala that was on Tuesday because we were honoring big named. More. I can do more name dropping if you so desire.
Go ahead, drop one. As long as it's not yours. My problem was you're promoting yourself. It's a good thing you haven't written a book yet. You would have heard that 6 times by now. We're 10 minutes in. I would have heard the title 6 times.
No, I have a long way to go before I'm writing a book. But Fareed Zakaria is one of our trustees.
Oh, outstanding. CNN.
And yes, from Fareed Zakaria GPS on CNN on Sundays. He was one of the people we were honoring. He's been on our board for 10 years. So he got our award for promoting international understanding. So he was among the very impressive groups that were there. So I know there was some of the trustees were live tweeting, but also we were live tweeting from the institutional account.
Okay.
Just so that people could see, oh, this is really happening. Oh, Fareed Zakaria is getting his award, and oh, Paul Volcker's speaking, and oh, okay.
And how do you feel this all relates back to donor retention?
I think it relates back because things like live tweeting let people see things are actually happening. Let them see that we brought a group of residents there to make sure that the special event donors really get a clear understanding of the house and what it is our really mission is all about. Because it's one thing to have a special event, raise all this money, and then everybody goes home and feels fine. But it's always been a priority for us to make sure that the residents are there so that the donors can meet them, because a lot of special event donors, by virtue of not being annual fund donors per se, are not necessarily being alums, do not come to a lot of our events. So we're trying to capitalize on the opportunity of having them all in one space to say, here meet some of our impressive scholarship recipients, here meet some of the residents that have done really impressive things and have plenty more to do in their careers, so that they can really start to see the value that they're providing to our community.
And for those who can't come, you're able to engage them.
They can see it on Twitter, they can see it on Facebook. As more photos are coming in from the photographer, we're trying to push those right back out through links on our website and through Facebook and Twitter, so people can they say, oh, or if you were there or you know someone who was there, you can go through the photos and say, oh, so-and-so got to talk to Fareed Zakaria. Oh, that's impressive.
Yeah.
So I think it meets a lot of different purposes without nearly as much effort as it could take.
What is International House doing that's, you think, really exemplary in donor retention that you want to share?
Exemplary in donor retention? That's a very good question. Well, that could be another opportunity for me to pat myself on the back. So I'm going to seize on this because you set me up perfectly, Tony. I would think the one-on-one reporting we're doing now for scholarship recipients, because there are a lot of scholarship funds that have been created probably in the last 40 years, some through capital campaigns, some kind of much more independently as someone gets to that point in the major gift cultivation process, that they decide they want to create a scholarship fund. That stewardship has really been really important for us, because a lot of those donors, again, are not in New York City, don't get to come to our events or meet residents at all. And the residents are in the spring is usually when I get to do all my interviews with scholarship recipients, and I really enjoy it, for one, just because in the development office there's so few opportunities to just engage with residents and just kind of hear about what are they studying, what do they want to do in their careers. But this is a great opportunity to kind of talk to them, get their story, figure out what it is they're really focused on, and then be able to share that information with a donor who can say, oh, I made a gift 5 years ago of $15,000 and it's supporting great people like this. So especially, I think it's even more important for people who are not in the New York area than for those who usually do come to events and kind of have a feel for the people that live at the house. Because I think we've gotten some really positive feedback from people about, oh, I had forgotten about this, or oh, this has been so interesting and engaging. I feel like I'm really a part of what's going on at the house, even if I live in another country. And for us, that's the heart of it. I mean, because we have alumni spread out literally around the world, and it's hard to keep them engaged, keep them feeling connected to the work that's happening in New York, while there are also alumni events going on all over the world, but they don't always get to meet the residents.
This reporting, let's broaden it for nonprofits that may not have alumni and scholarships, and maybe in something different. I mean, you're essentially talking about outcomes reporting.
Yes, letting them really see, okay, your fund of $15,000 produced, let's say, $2,000 in the last year. That $2,000 supported two or three residents, and these are what they're going for in their careers. This is what they're studying, and this is what they've done in the last 2 years while they lived at the house that has really changed, exposed them, opened their eyes to different cultures, expanded their horizons, and let them see a lot more potential in the areas they want to work.
Those are all valuable outcomes, impacts that donors are now, within the past 4 or 5 years,
much more interested in.
That's right. Yeah, of course. Other methods of sharing impact at a place like International House?
We've been experimenting with some video. I'd like to do more.
You're on video right now, of course.
Well, but this is not. I'm not going to share. I'm not going to send this out to any donors because they're not going to be interested.
If anything, it will hurt your. I don't want to hurt your giving stats.
Thank you very much.
Yes, no.
But no, it's really more because in the last, I think 2 years ago, some residents actually created their own video, just to kind of encapsulate their iHouse experience that we've been able to use from YouTube.
Okay.
But I'd really like to do something probably every year, every 2 years, that may be some scholarship residents talking about their experience. We have a whole lot of some of the different participants in the leadership programs, just so that people outside of New York and don't get to be there, really just get to see, and even for use at special events where people don't know what it is we do. It's an easy way to say, watch this for 2 minutes. At least you'll have a flavor for what it is we do, the caliber of people that live there, and the really impressive people that also have participated in our programs.
Yeah. How many residents are there?
In a given calendar year, it's usually between 700 and 1,000.
Oh my gosh, it's much bigger than I thought.
And 70% of the resident population is always international. We usually try to keep it to 70% international, 30% domestic. And they can stay for as short as 30 days and as long as 3 years.
And is there just one location, or do you have multiple residences?
There are multiple international houses. We're the only one in New York. We've been open. We will be 90 next year.
Excellent. Where is it in New York?
We are on Riverside Drive, almost diagonal from Grant's Tomb, and next across the park from Riverside Church.
Oh man, a view of the Hudson.
We have great. Some of the residents have amazing views across the river. Some have great views through Sakura Park and onto Riverside Church or Grant's Tomb. So it's some nice views considering where you are. And one of the many things we're doing for the residents as a part of our operating support, in addition to scholarships and fellowships that we provide to help them put on programming for their community. We're usually subsidizing residents by at least $2,500 per resident, based on what they would be paying to live in the same area, have the same amenities at their immediate disposal.
Okay.
And that's really important to us, in addition to providing between $400,000 and $500,000 a year in scholarships and fellowships. So that it's easier for them to participate in the community, because we really believe that they get the most out of their time there by being engaged in the community, by attending programs, getting to know other people from other parts of the world, because our alumni are always very proud to go out and then say, oh, if I find myself in Sri Lanka, I've got 5 people I know. If I find myself in Djibouti, I know 3 people.
I've been to Sri Lanka, by the way. I was in Colombo, the capital, and then I went north into the jungle, into Anuradhapura.
Good Lord.
Sri Lanka. I spent about better part of a week. 5 days or so in Sri Lanka.
You're more well-traveled than I thought, Tony.
Let's bring it back to donor retention.
Yes.
How important do you think the annual fund is?
For us.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean the annual fund. I meant the annual report.
Oh.
How important is that to donor engagement and retention?
I'm probably going to have to say, on some levels, very important, but to other people, totally inconsequential. I think for the higher level donors, I think for the higher level donors, it's always going to be of interest to at least be able to have something tangible and see while in a meeting, oh, this is last year's annual report, and this is we met these big objectives. Here's some photos. Here's the important financials. We added these people to the board, and they're bringing all this extra capacity to what we're doing. But I think also for the annual fund donor who's giving $100 a year, I don't think they are, in my experience at least working with them, they seem to be less interested in that. It's much more, tell me about the residents and what they're doing, and much less of the hardcore metrics, hardcore financials, what's really actually happening. But that is obviously a generalization because we have thousands of donors.
Sure. All right. What about the iHouse website?
The iHouse website?
In terms of, don't just describe it, but in terms of donor engagement and retention.
Because we recently released a new website, unveiled it rather, and we were very intentional about providing one specific area where we are sharing quotes from residents. I don't think we have any video clips up yet, but that's one of my goals for the next fiscal year. It's really focused about how do your gifts impact this community and what does it mean. So that's, for us, I think I'm hoping for the future going forward, people will be able to go to the website and really be able to see very clearly, if I give International House $100, what am I supporting? And to know reasonably, okay, it's going to be supporting leadership programs, scholarships, fellowships, the outings that we do all over the city and within the region for people to learn more about the city and the U.S., but also have those opportunities to get to know each other.
That noise behind Dan is a spinning wheel. The booth adjacent to ours is giving away either caps, T-shirts, mugs, or a chance to win an iPad.
Yes.
And you spin the wheel for the chance, and that's what you were hearing.
So yes, we're not having.
Dan does not have any kind of speech impediment or some. I have this ability to make a Native American, clicking sound while he's talking and speaking code. There was no code underlying what Dan was saying. It's strictly a raffle wheel.
Thank you for that clarification.
Very talented man. But does not do the clicking sounds as he's...
not yet.
Otherwise, I think you'd be working for the National Security Agency if you were able to do that.
I'll take it.
All right. Let's see. Well, let's donor retention. Let's leave listeners with one more
thing they
bit
should
of
be
advice
doing
for small and mid-sized shops, not alumni related like International House.
I would say be sure that you are tracking when you send out whatever sort of fundraising appeals you're sending out, whether they're direct mail, email, web-based. Make sure you're tracking who they came from, what's kind of the tone that you're taking, whether you're talking specifically about impact or just really about good works. And then kind of the basic metrics of response rates, so you can be able to compare over maybe 2 to 3 years to say, okay, are more donors responding to a message from a trustee? Are more donors responding to a message from the president of the board? Someone who has actually benefited from our programs? And if we're talking specifically about impact, do a certain kind of donor respond to that one? And because all of this information really will help you better cater your message to the various constituencies that you have. Because if you know certain donors who on a regular appeal will give you $50, but when you talk specifically about you provide a clear picture of one resident or one person who has benefited from your cause, they'll go from $50 to $100, then you know you need to keep sending them impact pieces and not just generic ask pieces. So that's an easy rule of the road.
Well, we can explore that a little bit more. We got a couple minutes. You're basically talking about testing.
Yes.
Right. Say a little more about how you conduct your tests.
For me, thus far it's really been able to look back at. I think I usually go at least 4 or 5 years back to say, okay, which appeals? What was really the response rate? Let's see, how many people were we mailing to? What did that mean? And then say how much money was raised. Obviously, average gift per donor, and then kind of try to figure out. Even though every appeal is always different, it's hard to pin the differences on any one thing. But if you're seeing a trend that people are responding more to appeals from members of the Board of Trustees,
right, as we were saying, right.
then you know that obviously needs to be something you're focused more on.
But you have to set up a method of tracking these things.
Well, yes. I mean, for me, I do something. I keep it very basic. I usually track it all in Excel. Whether it's the response rates, the authors, kind of the tone.
What other variables do you try to control for?
Still average gift per donor, the number of donors that actually responded, the number of gifts, just so that you know. It's much more about having as much information as possible, because you could even see in the economic downturn, yes, while we may not have received as many gifts, the percentages still stayed reasonably around what our averages have been. So it was an opportunity to say, yes, our totals are down like everyone else is in America, but people are still giving at or above the usual rates. So we really don't have it's not like we lost 15% of our donor base, just because the economy was a mess.
And then this way, you also have this data that you can go to your supervisors with, your board with, to justify perhaps increases in spending in certain ways by saying, we've got the evidence that more money spent here is very, very likely to bring in more money. To bear more.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right, we're going to leave it there, Dan Blakemore.
Well, that sounds good to me. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you and get to your listeners, Tony.
My pleasure. We're connected in lots of different ways on the social networks.
Yes.
Okay. It's good to see you in person again. Dan Blakemore is the Assistant Director of Development for Individual Giving at International House in New York City. And we're in New York City with live coverage of Fundraising Day 2013. Thank you very much for being with us.